I'm here with my helper Noah today, who is going to tell us a little bit more about the typewriter we're about ready to get started on.
Well, so the typewriter is one of the newer series. It actually came out this year in 2021, and it's part of the Lego Idea series, as you can see right there. It has a little over 2,000 pieces, and there's actually some functioning in it, which is really cool. So let's get started.
Here we go. The invention of the typewriter dates all the way back to 1714 when an English inventor was granted a patent for a machine that transcribed letters. Over the next century and a half, there were a variety of inventions and patents involving letter transcribing machines, but it wasn't until 1868 that Christopher Latham Scholes was issued a patent on the first typewriter that was eventually mass-produced following a series of enhancements made over the next several years. A couple of those enhancements involved the keyboard that you can see being built out now. While the first mass-produced typewriters had the QWERTY keyboard that I'm about to put on, and remarkably is what we still use today, even in our text messaging over 150 years later, that actually isn't where it started. First, as you can see in this image of one of the earliest renditions, the typewriters were originally made with piano keys. The switch to the button shape happened very early on before the typewriters hit mainstream, but the initial model may explain why we still call them keys today. Secondly, keys on early devices were in alphabetical order to ensure everyone knew where the keys were, given common knowledge of the alphabet. However, this initial layout didn't last long either. The most popular theory is that when letters close to each other were pushed in rapid succession, the typewriter mechanics would often jam. QWERTY seemed to limit nearby keys being pressed in rapid succession, which minimized jamming and ultimately sped up typists. Now you may be asking yourself about the letters E and R, two keys right next to each other, often used in succession. However, just before production, the keyboard layout was actually QWE.TY, but at the last minute, the R was swapped in for the period as they had seemingly resolved any jamming issues, at least for that combination. What we're building out now is actually the carriage return that wasn't invented until 1960. This simplified getting back to the left side of the page to type the next line and became the return or enter key that we know on our keyboards today. As we're putting the finishing touches on, it's worth noting the typewriter saved 40 minutes per hour compared to handwriting. So what took 2 hours to write by hand could be typed in 40 minutes. This was a huge efficiency, and by the 1890s, why over 100,000 typewriters were being used across the country. And the typewriter is in the books, about 5.5 hours to complete the 340 steps, and honestly probably my favorite build I've done just because of the functionality in here. I'll show you a quick video of this in action. You can see as I press the keys, one at a time, the carriage moves over character by character. When you get to the end of the line, you can return that carriage, reset that line, and continue typing just as you would on your normal typewriter. So really, really cool. The other thing that I wanted to show is some of the internal pieces here, how this actually functions, to show some of the ingenuity by the Lego design team. You can see here as I press the buttons how the internal workings function to move that carriage over character by character. So really, really cool. As you see this model here, this model is obviously a newer model with the carriage that wasn't invented until later. The original typewriter actually retailed for about $125, which in today's dollars is about $3,200. Now, because labor was so cheap, and I'll get into that in a second, this made a lot of sense for businesses and universities and institutions because of the 60 to 70% gains over handwriting. But back to the minimal labor costs that also made this a great cost benefit. 75 to 80% of the early typists were actually women. Women did not get equal pay to men, and women did not, in a lot of cases, have an equitable working environment in the office. So again, that was something that made this I think accelerated the typewriter's existence into the mainstream. Interesting to note, though, that this typewriter and other similar technologies played such a role in women's employment and bringing women into the workforce, although it did take decades to build upon that to get us to the more equitable environment that we're striving for today on that front. So really, really cool. Appreciate you guys watching. As always, feel free to comment anything you'd love to see me do. Some great suggestions and recommendations so far, a few of which I'm still trying to get my hands on, and we'll do that and get those in the queue. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.